welcome to Hated Cooks a Lot. Today I'm going to be making some zucchini and onions, kind of like the Japanese steakhouse style with some yum yum sauce. So before we get started, make sure your hair is back, sleeves are rolled up, nothing on your hands or wrists, and your hands are washed. So I'm going to start with the yum yum sauce. Now I've never made this before, so I'm going to play around. We'll see how it tastes, and I might need to adjust as we go. So I have a bowl here. I looked up some recipes online and there were so many different varieties. So I just took a little here, a little there, some ideas. I'm gonna make it myself and see what I like. So I'm gonna be using some mayonnaise. Traditionally they would use a Japanese mayonnaise, but I don't have that. So when it comes to mayonnaise, this is one of the only things that I buy brand name. So I like Duke's mayonnaise. That is the best tasting one. I like the regular, and I like the light and olive oil version also. So I'm gonna grab out of here about a half of a cup's worth. That was my dishwasher draining. So that's about a half of a cup right there. All right. Get off the spoon. Oh, okay. Set that aside. And it calls for, I've seen recipes with ketchup, I've seen some with tomato paste, but I'm not gonna open up a can of tomato paste and when I only need a teaspoon out of it. So no thanks, that's wasting stuff to me. And I don't have one of those tubes of the tomato paste either. You can buy them in these little squirt tubes that you can keep in your refrigerator. I don't have that, so, but I have ketchup. So I'm gonna squirt in, I shook up my ketchup good because it does separate, and I'm gonna squirt in about a teaspoon's worth. That's good right there, not too much. I'm going to put in a little bit, about 1/4 of a teaspoon's worth of onion powder. That's good right there. And then about 1/4 of a teaspoon's worth of granulated garlic, and I buy this in large containers. I get this granulated garlic I get at Costco in a large container, and then I put it in a canning jar, and then this onion powder I get from Food Lion in the Hispanic section. Their spices are cheaper and you can get some big, good sized containers. I have some smoked paprika. You can also use regular paprika. So I'm gonna put in here also about 1/4 of a teaspoon of the smoked paprika. And the smoke, it just smells like it's been a little bit over like a wood fire kind of. It smells good. But I like this better than the regular paprika. And then I am going to just add about maybe a tablespoon of water in here. And I have my sink right here. So I'm gonna put about a tablespoon, that's good, of water in there, just to thin it slightly. And now I'm gonna whisk these together. And I have a baby whisk here. So I'm gonna whisk these together until they're thoroughly combined. I can always add in a little bit more water if I want it a little thinner. Of course, I can adjust my seasoning. And I think I do want to add a little bit of salt. Let me see. Here's my salt right here. I have some pink Himalayan salt. So I'm gonna put just a little bit in there. Okay, a couple grinds of that. So that'd be like a hefty pinch of salt. And pretty good. So this is what it looks like right now. So it's like a good drizzle consistency without being too thick. So at this point, I'm gonna give it a taste. I've seen some recipes that use rice wine vinegar, mirin, and sugar. I don't know if I want all that. So I'm gonna try this first and then I can adjust. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm gonna put in here a little splash of the vinegar to give it some brightness to it. So this is rice vinegar, and I got this bottle at Trader Joe's. They have it the cheapest there. And it's like a sweet vinegar. I like it. So I'm just gonna put a few little squirts of that in there. Maybe a little bit more, there we go. And then I think I do wanna add a little bit of sugar to it. So here's my big, let me move it. Here's my big Cambros container of sugar, and I get these at the restaurant supply store. So let me put in, that's a teaspoon worth of sugar right there. Get that lid back on. that out of the way. Whisk this back together. And I put my dirty spoon in the sink. I do want to add a tiny bit more water to it. Just a little squirt. Here we go. And then I'm going to make sure that I whisk this up enough to dissolve that sugar in it. I don't have any little gritty granules going on your tongue or teeth. And as it sits, it would dissolve anyway. And then this is a clean spoon. Okay, now I'm going to taste again. Okay, perfect. All right, so that tastes good to me. All right, so I'm going to set this off to the side, and now I'm going to prep my zucchinis and onions. So I already washed the zucchini and onion, okay, and I dried them off. So when I washed the onion, I removed the loose skin and I picked off the little hairy things from the root end of the onion. So this is the stem end and this is the root end, okay? Underneath my cutting board here, I have 3 red silicone hot pads to keep my cutting board from moving around. If you don't have that, then lay out a flat paper towel that's damp the length of your cutting board so your cutting board does not move. I'm going to be using a chef knife. So this is a Santoku style chef knife, which has these little divots going along. And remember, a chef knife, the blade is lower than the handle. I'm going to slide my middle finger up until this little groove. I'm going to wrap my finger around so my first finger is bent right here. And on the back side, my thumb is right there on that part of it. Okay, and let me see. I'm going to cut up my zucchini first. So I'm going to cut the stem end off of the zucchini and then the bottom end off, which is actually called the blossom end. When you grow zucchini in your garden, it has male and female blossoms that come up, and you can actually pick the blossoms off and fry them up and eat them. They're delicious. You can stuff them with like a cheese mixture, but that's another video. So how do I want to cut my zucchini? So I've seen them in the restaurants where they're kind of like thinner strips and they're about that long. So I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to cut this lengthwise first, all the way down the middle. And notice I'm holding onto my zucchini so it doesn't wobble on me. Okay, and then that looks good. I'm just going to go flat side down, and then I think I'm going to go lengthwise again down the zucchini. Okay, that looks good. And then maybe lengthwise again. Okay, into some thinner strips. You want them kind of thin, but not super thin. All right, so I'm cutting each one of those strips in thirds. Okay, moving that out of the way. Okay, so here's this one here, going lengthwise. All right, and then this one here. Okay, scoot that out of the way. And I'll come back and chop that again in a second. So same thing, I'm going to cut this one down lengthwise, flat side down so it doesn't wobble on me. Cut that in half lengthwise. Okay, and now each of these in thirds. So one cut and then the second cut, which makes the 3 pieces. And zucchini is really good for us. It's full of fiber, and it has potassium and vitamin C, vitamin A, B6, and one more, magnesium. So that's what it's higher in. All right, that looks good. And then we cut this one lengthwise into the 3 pieces. All right. Zucchini doesn't last very long in your refrigerator, so when you do buy it, you want to use it up pretty quickly. So I'm going to put this, let me see, I'm going to cut these in half. I'm going to put my palm on top. So I stacked them all up in one giant stack. So I'm going to cut these in half, and then each of these halves, see that? Each of these halves, I'm going to cut in half again. Okay. There we go. So I have some little chunks here, and I think that would be good to like stab and be able to dip into my sauce to eat. All right, and then I'm gonna cut these in half here. Good. All right, so that looks delicious. Ready to go. And I'm gonna be warming up my cast iron skillet in a minute and gonna be cooking it on there. All right, so I have a little piece of zucchini. I'm gonna flip that off. Flip that one off. All right, so to cut my onion, I'm going to cut off the stem end of the onion. Okay, so I'm holding it on its side. I'm gonna cut off the stem end. Get rid of that, that'll go in my compost. Flat side down, and I'm gonna cut directly through the root. I have my hand closed on top of it. Go straight through the center of the root. Now I can peel this onion. So I'm gonna peel the skin that was stuck on. The loose skin I already peeled off earlier when I was washing the onion. Now I'm taking off the skin that's stuck on there. All right, and sometimes we can just take the skin off like I am on this one. This one's fine. And sometimes we have to take the first whole layer of onion off too. It just depends on what it looks like, what you get inside. So what kind of pieces of onion? I think I want little chunks of onion too. So I'm gonna come in, I'm leaving my root end intact, and I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna make a slice like that, and like that. So probably 1, 2, 3 slices in, not going all the way through the root. Then I'm gonna rotate and I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna chop. So again, root ends away from me. I'm using the tip of my knife, not cutting all the way through the root. I'm gonna cut down there, cut down there, and cut down there. So you can see I made 3 cuts, okay? And that root is holding my pieces of onion together. And now I'm going to turn it, the root's away from me, going to my left, I'm right-handed, and now I'm gonna come in and I'm going to cut some chunks of this onion. All right, and that looks good. And I can cut that into 2 pieces, put that in my compost. Okay, so I have these little chunks of onion here, and I will be sauteing those up. I'm gonna do the same thing with this half of the onion. So coming in here, cutting down with the tip, here, and here. I always keep my fingers out of the way because I do not wanna cut my hand. All right. Cut that, that, and that. All right, get rid of that. That goes in my compost. Okay, so yum yum sauce is made. My zucchini and my onions are cut and they're ready to go. Onions are also full of nutrition. They have fiber, folate, vitamin C, B6, potassium, yep, and a little bit of phosphorus, okay, in them. So there's other nutrients too, but that's what it has mainly in them. So onions are very good for you too. So both of these are full of fiber and they're low in calories. So they're good if people are on a diet. Okay, I am going to turn my computer over there. So I'll be back in a second and then we're gonna start to cook the onions and the zucchini. Okay, so I have my cast iron skillet that's been heating up. I'm over about just a hair below medium heat. I can feel my hand about 2 inches above it and feels good and hot. So at this point is when I'm gonna add in my oil. So you can use vegetable oil, you can use olive oil. I'm going to use avocado oil, which is a monounsaturated fat. So this is a little heart healthy, just like the olive oil would be, but the olive oil will give it a little flavor to it. So this is a plain oil, does not taste like avocados. So I'm gonna drizzle in a little bit. So right there, that's about 2 tablespoons worth that I put. Okay, I'm going to scrape it across the bottom of my pan. Make sure it's coated. Remember, your cast iron skillet's hot. That's why I'm not touching the handle of it. Now I'm going to pick up my cutting board, bring my cutting board over, and with my hands, I'm going to be putting in the onion. Okay, so I'm directing it right into here. Okay, and I'm only putting in the onion right now. Okay, let's spread this out. Let this cook somewhat. The onion will take longer to cook than the zucchini, so that's why this goes in first. Okay, so I'm spreading this out, separating out my pieces of onion. And now it's fragrant. Now I can smell it. The onion's letting off some of its scent. And when I was cutting my onions earlier, if you end up starting to cry because the onions are burning your eyes, then you can stop cutting, walk over to your freezer, and open the freezer door and stick your face inside the freezer and then blink, 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 blink like that with your face in the freezer, and helps to pull the oils out so your eyes don't burn. All right, so I'm getting a little bit golden tint edges on the side of the onion. So I'm going to spread this out. It's coated in oil now, spreading that out everywhere in a single layer. Okay, and I'm gonna let it sit for a second. Let me move my zucchini over here too. I'm gonna set this over here, ready. So you don't have to constantly move it. So you can let it sit for like, 20 seconds, 30 seconds or so, and then check it, move it around. That way the heat's hitting that one surface area of it and helping it to brown and cook. All right, so it's been about 20, 30 seconds. Now I'm gonna move it around, flip it over. You can use a wooden spoon. If you use a wooden spoon, I suggest if you have a flat bottomed wooden spoon, it's a little easier to use. I like to use a turner because it's easy for me to scoop under something and turn it over. Okay, and this is the type of spatula known as a turner. Okay, there's lots of different types of spatulas. So, scooting that around. Now spreading it back out in another thin layer. And I want to cook my onion, but I don't want it, I want it to be cooked, but I don't want it to be like raw, and I don't want it to be fully mushy and floppy looking either. So it needs to have a little bit of a crunch factor to it still. All right, so at this point, it's starting to turn a little bit translucent, okay, which means it's starting to cook through. It's going from an opaque, which is like a solid looking white, to translucent, where I can sort of see through the onion a little bit, not clear like a window, but you can sort of see some of the fibers onto it. So I'm gonna scoop the onion over out of my way, and I'm gonna now pick up my zucchini, and I'm going to put, with my hands, my zucchini into the pan. Okay. All right, and I'm gonna spread that out. Bring those onions back over a little bit. Okay, spread the zucchini out. And I need to add a touch more oil. The zucchini is a little bit like a sponge. It will soak up a little bit of that oil as it goes. So I'm adding in, I added in probably about 2 teaspoons worth again right there. Okay. Now I'm gonna turn this around, flip the zucchini over. It's already starting to get a little bit of color on it. And move these onions around, put them where they are. All right, that's good. All right, now I'm gonna intermix the two together. Whoop, one of them just jumped ship. Get back over here. Get in there. All right, my stove is clean, so I can do that. All right, flipping that around. This is looking tasty. Still just smells like onion. I don't smell the zucchini yet. It really doesn't have too much of a scent anyway, but it tastes good. All right, let that sit and get that onion off of my turner. That looks good. It's gonna taste real good with my yum yum sauce. I think I'm gonna put some, at the end, I'm gonna put a little bit of soy sauce in there, which will be my salt and the soy sauce. And then traditionally they put a little bit of teriyaki sauce in there. I don't have teriyaki sauce. So I'm gonna put a little bit of stir fry sauce instead. Teriyaki sauce, you know, can be a little bit on the sweet side, but that's okay. I'm just gonna sub a little bit of the stir fry sauce. And then at the end, I'm gonna sprinkle on the sesame seeds. Okay, so that looks good. Time to flip this over. Make sure that zucchini gets cooked. We don't want zucchini to be mushy though. Mushy zucchini, no mushy vegetables, that's gross. So your vegetables should still have a slight bite to it. So it's called crisp tender is the texture of your vegetables. And that's what you want to go for if you cook them, crisp tender. Have a little bit of a bite still in them, but they are also a little bit tender. They're no longer raw. This is looking really good. The zucchini is bringing on some color to it now. It's starting to brown. And when something's browning in the oil, it's actually bringing out the natural sugars in it. So that's what browning is, which equals flavor play. That looks really good. Okay, and I'm gonna let this go for about another minute, and then I'm gonna add in my sauces. Because we cut the zucchini on the thinner side, that's why it's cooking pretty quickly. The thicker it is, the longer it's gonna take to cook. All right, that looks good. So I'm gonna get the lids off of my sauces at this point. So this is my soy sauce. Doesn't matter what brand you use. I'm gonna shake that up though. And then I happen to have this brand of stir fry sauce, which does need to get shaken. But again, you should be using teriyaki. So it would normally be about 2 tablespoons of teriyaki and 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. But I'm gonna use a tablespoon of soy sauce and maybe a tablespoon of stir fry, and then see, maybe a little bit less of the stir fry, and then see what I think, if I need to add a little bit more or not. All right, so my lids are off, shook up, they're ready. You give this a toss again. And we don't want to put our sauces in too early because they would actually burn. We don't want to ruin our dish because this is money. We pay for it. We want it to go in our belly, not ruin it. All right, so this is cooked just right at this point. So I'm going to hold this up so you can see. So this is what our vegetables look like, okay? All right, so I'm gonna add in the tablespoon of soy sauce. I'm gonna eyeball it. You're welcome to get out your tablespoon measure and measure yourself. And remember, the soy sauce has soy in it, so if you're allergic to soy, you don't wanna have that. And it has salt in it. I'm gonna put a little bit of that stir fry sauce in there. And now I'm tossing them around. They've turned a darker brown because that soy sauce is dark in color. Okay, and now I'm gonna turn off my heat. That looks good. Okay, and I need to give this a taste. So to see if I need to add any more sauce in there or not. Ooh, it's hot. Nope, that's right. Right. Nope, actually I think I'm gonna add a little bit more soy in here. Okay. Had the good brightness at the front, but then as I chewed, needed a little bit more. All right, stir that in. That's good. All right, and now I'm gonna sprinkle in my sesame seed. So I got this at one of the Asian markets. It says roasted sesame seed, but it should say toasted sesame seeds on there because they did toast the sesame seeds. Notice they're a golden color. Otherwise, when they're just regular plain white, you need to toast them to yourself. You can do that though. So you would take them and put them in a dry skillet over like a medium-low heat and stir them around until they turn a little bit golden, and then that's it. All right, so I'm gonna take this. I sprinkled some of the sesame seeds on. I'm gonna put some on my plate. And now I'm gonna whisk up my yum yum sauce again, just in case it's separated a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna drizzle a little bit of that on top. Give it a taste. All right, I'm gonna get a piece of that onion and a piece of the zucchini. It's yum yum. I like it. That's delicious. All right, this would go great with some rice. All right, well, thank you for joining me.